So this morning I'm going to make some jam with my black currants. Black currants grow on a very large shrub, which is probably over my head. So it's probably, we're going to guess, about 6 feet tall. So you have to pick all these little berries off when they turn black like this, when they're ripe. And then the recipe, I'm going to need some liquid pectin, so I'm using Certo. And for the recipe, I need 2 pounds of black currants for each recipe. So each batch. So I measured out 2 pounds of the black currants on my scale, and I have poured them into my food processor here with the sharp blade on there. So you can see that is approximately 8 cups of black currants. So as you can see, black currants have these little, what they call tops and tails on them. So instead of having to remove each one of those, which would be ridiculously time consuming, I'm just going to put them in my food processor and whiz them up for a little bit to break them all up, and then you will never know that you've left on your tops and tails in your jam. So here we go, plug your ears. So they're broken up quite a bit. As you can see, the juice is already starting to come out. Now these are going to get cooked. If you've never used these liquid measuring cups, they are awesome. So instead of looking from the side and bending down and whatnot, you can just, they have these flat measurement that you can look from the top. So there's 2 pounds of black currants, 1 1/3 cups of water, and I'm just going to pour it back into my food processor and swish it around just to get any remaining. Goes into the pot with the whizzed up black currants, and then these are going to cook for about 30 minutes on just a low simmer, just until the skins are super tender. So you can just try one, and if the skins kind of melt in your mouth, then it's ready for the sugar and the next step. Okay, so this has cooked for about 30 minutes. It's looking very soft and tender, and you can't see any big bits in there anymore. And so this is a dry measuring cup, as opposed to the liquid one that I showed you earlier. So this is requiring 8 cups of sugar. Yes, it is a treat. So the sugar is going to go into the black currants, and if you've ever had a black currant, you'll understand why I get so much sugar. And so this is going to boil hard for 10 minutes, and I'm going to stir it a couple of times. I'm going to stir it to dissolve all this sugar. Then it is going to boil hard for 10 minutes, and then I am going to stir it once or twice during that process. And then after that point, we're going to add the pectin, and then we boil hard for another 2 minutes. And then we're going to fill the hot sterilized jars, and that's what's making all the noise over here. I am sterilizing some jars in some boiling water. Then I'm going to put them over here on this wooden cutting board and make sure I have enough jars all sterilized, and the lids will go on and we'll seal it. So the sugar has been dissolved here, so I'm going to keep stirring until it comes to a full rolling boil. Then I'm going to let it boil and just stir occasionally, once or twice. So the sugar and the berries are starting to come to a big boil. Now a rolling boil is exactly what it says. You see how it's coming up from the sides and rolling into the center. You want it to boil, keep it not just a simmer, but a hard boil like that. Now for 10 minutes. So I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. And in the meantime, I've got my jars being sterilized in the water, and my lids, to be in the water for 15 minutes to sterilize them. They're washed first, then sterilized. These are the lids. They come in these boxes, these Bernardin boxes. These are the standard regular sized mouth, and then there's the what they call the large mouth. So depending on the opening of your jar. So you'll see in here I've got the standard mouth, and I've got a couple of wide mouth jars. So I've got my lids all ready to go in. So once these boil for 15 minutes, I'm going to take them out, keep them warm till my jam's ready, put them on the board. I'm going to turn off the boil, and I'm going to put these in here, the lids in the water, so that this compound softens up So they're going to be in there for about three or maybe 5 minutes is all it takes for that. These are not to be reused because this compound apparently is only good for one seal, so I never reuse those. So one other thing that I'm going to do is that because I'm going to use one of the jars right away, I'm not going to bother wasting one of these, but I bought these storage lids, which look like this. They're just plastic. They're great for many things, as you can imagine. So it just screws on and they're reusable and you can use them as many times as you like. So here we go. This is a definite rolling boil, so I'm going to set my timer. One other thing about what they call a hard boil is so when you stir this, it doesn't stop the boiling. It keeps on boiling. It's that temperature. Okay, so this has been boiling for 10 minutes. So I'm now going to add the pouch of liquid Surdo. And for some reason my phone is now going blurry again. Okay, so the jars are all ready. The lids are softened. You only use those lids with the sealant on it once because it creates a permanent mark in the sealant, which doesn't come out. Apparently it is permanent. So not stirring the jam when it's boiling is important. The same thing as when you're making caramel or candy, because when it's boiling, stirring it can cause the sugar to crystallize and it leaves a cloudy mixture. So and if you do get any scum from too much stirring or stirring because you forgot you weren't supposed to, then you can just spoon off the scum. So now that it has boiled hard for 2 minutes with the Surdo or the pectin in it, I am just taking it off the heat, and I'm just going to stir for a few minutes just so that as it's setting up, the fruit won't float right to the top. So hopefully that will help it distribute it all throughout the jam. So my jars are ready to be filled. My lids are nice and warm, but not boiled. And so I'm going to use my ancient old ladle here. I'm just going to ladle out the jam. I'm going to get a funnel and I'm going to put it into the jars. So as you can see, the jars get a little mucky when you're putting the jam in. So what you want to do is wipe the rim of the jar with a cloth. Make sure it's clean, because when you put the snap lid on, you don't want it to become, you don't want to break the seal. So you want the rubber sealant right on the glass. So wipe that off, put on your hot lid, put your screw band on, just fingertip tight. We want the steam is going to escape because that sealant is still soft, and then it snaps back down, creating an airtight seal. Okay, so here is the jam with all the lids on. These were fingertip tight, so in other words, just use your fingers, not like your whole hand, and crank it on, as I said, because you want the steam to escape. And so this one, I'm just going to put my little plastic lid on here. Just like this, because I am going to eat this one. So these jars, once these lids have sealed on here, you can take the screw bands off, because quite often in all the rims and the ridges of the jars, and the jars are sticky. If you put this in your storage, wherever that happens to be, in your cold cellar if you have one, they can get all moldy in there. So I always take the screw bands off and wash them, save them for another use. As you can see, some of them I've had for many years, and I just keep reusing them. So in storage, it just has this top on, and it does not have the screw band on. So enjoy, and I hope you try to make some jam, everybody. There's lots and lots of awesome recipes available, so your creativity is your only limit.